Hello and aloha to all the Baha'is of the world. Time is about 11. Today is April 19. I've not been feeling good, but some days I'm becoming like Canadian weather, can predict. Today I feel good. I think people on the other side monitor my health. I've lost 25 pounds, so my body's adjusting. I've been meaning to put some videos to reiterate what I've said in the past about the guardianship in the Baha'i faith, which are really three types of guardianship. You have the divine guardianship, which is of Shoghi Effendi, the only one. And then there's the guardianship of the elders, which is a special guardianship. And then there's general guardianship. These are all the texts of the book that I'm telling you. The first one is the infallible guardianship, or I would say divine guardianship, which separates in this type of guardianship from other people. If you study the text in the Baha'i faith, like the Will and Testament of Abdul-Baha, or a couple of other places, you will essentially find that I've chosen 9 definitions for the guardianship of Shoghi Effendi, or the first type of guardianship, divine guardianship, prophesied in the book of Isaiah, in the writing of Muhyiddin. And it goes as follows. First of all, the guardians, this type of guardianship, it is from the family of Baha'u'llah, which in the case of Shoghi Effendi was a marriage between the family of Baha'u'llah and the family of the Bab. They call Aqsan and Afnan. And it's always male, and it is an inheritance. He has inherited this from Abdul-Baha. So it matters, number 1. 2, I've said that he is the chief of the universal laws of justice and is irreplaceable. Irreplaceable, you cannot replace him. He's always there. And this, him being the chief of the universal laws of justice, his leadership, it has to continue to the end of the Baha'i faith. He is the member of universal laws of justice. Number 4. Number 5, he can actually fire the member of universal laws of justice at his own discretion. Number 6, he actually can veto the decisions of the universal laws of justice. He's the member of universal laws of justice. And he's infallible in everything related to the Baha'i faith. He says that I'm not infallible as a doctor or as a physician or as a mathematician, but concerned to the matter of the Baha'i faith, whether it's writing or any decisions about anything that's related to the Baha'i faith, he is in charge, okay? All the Baha'is, from the member of universal laws of justice to anyone, everyone has to obey him, okay? And very important, he is chosen by an infallible being, which is Abdul-Baha, prior to him. So if you look at these 9 titles that I've read, and if you compare it to the guardianship of elders, They share only one of these 9. They are the interpreters of the writing of the Baha'i faith. That's it. They have no other jurisdictions. They're not the chief of universal laws of justice. Baha'is, they do not have to obey him. They have to read what he says, and if they found out in their own discretion, this is according to the Baha'i faith, and they're within the writing, then they have to. The righteousness of an elder, such as myself, is found by my message. If the message that I give you, it is in the Baha'i faith, it's not my own making, then perhaps the messenger must be the right one. Especially if this message has never been revealed, done by anybody else before. So in all these 9, only they are the interpreters of the writings. In that way, their specialty is that nobody else can do that except these 5. And out of the 5s, actually 1 is the head, 4 others are a part of one being altogether, and they bring it in. And in comparison to the 3rd guardianship, which is the general guardianship, which include, by the way, actual institution of the guardianship, or universal laws of guardianship. This is general guardianship. In that case, again, whatever they decide, the International Institution of Guardianship, the Universal Laws of Guardianship, their interpretations are authentic. They themselves are not. Just like a member of Universal Laws of Justice, they themselves individually are not infallible. But the decision of the whole as a whole is infallible. Same as the decision of the universal laws of guardianship. But essentially they're a consultant to the universal laws of justice. Decisions are made by universal laws of justice. See? They're like vice president. They're like the vizier. They're like prime minister to the king. They are the one who are the knowledgeable. They're the learned. Member of the universal laws of justice, based on their knowledge of the faith, if they need to, they will enact a law. So this is just a comparison. Some of the writing in this case, I read you from the Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah. He says, quote, "O my loving friends, after the passing away of this wronged one, it is incumbent upon the Aqsan branches, the Afnan twigs, of the sacred lottery, the hands pillars of the cause of God, and the loved one of the Abha beauty to turn and to show Effendi. The youthful branch from the 2 hallowed and sacred lotteries, and the fruit grown from the union of the 2 offshoots of the tree of holiness. As is the sign of God, the chosen branch, the guardian of the cause of God, he and to whom all the Aqsan, Afnan, the hands of the cause, and his loved ones must turn. He is the expounder of the words of God, and after him will succeed the firstborn of his lineal descendant." Number 2 here, the guardian of the cause of God is its sacred head and a distinguished member for the life of that body. Should he not attend in person its deliberation, he must appoint one to represent him. Should any of the members commit a sin injurious to the commonwealth, the guardian of the cause of God had at his own discretion the right to expel him, whereupon the people must elect another one in his stead. The 3rd one is by Shoghi Effendi in the World Order of Baha'u'llah, page 150. He says, quote, "He is bound to insist upon consideration by them of any enactment he consciously believes to conflict with the meaning and depart from the spirit of Baha'u'llah's revealed utterances. So those 9 things are just in this that I told you that. Now, in 1957, Shoghi Effendi died, passed away, and based on the will and testament of Abdul Baha, that he orders the hands of the cause of God, which had to be nominated by Shoghi Effendi. In that book he says, they have to choose 9 members within themselves. There were 27, so they elected 9 members within that 27. They become the custodians. They were residing in the Holy Land. And this was the institution that was left. They immediately set these 9 people, which Mason Remy, the famous Mason Remy, was one of them, by the way. And they went to search and check if Shoghi Effendi has left anyone to succeed him. It's all in the Wikipedia, you can go look at it. They went there and they found that there is no such document to say anybody else is there. But Baha'is were familiar with the writing of Abdul Baha and the Will and Testament, and they knew there is no other body except these 27 hands of the cause of God, where Abdul Baha says they have to be obeyed. It gives them a lot of authorities. This is one institution that's left. There was another institution which is called IBC, the International Baha'i Council. I think Shoghi Effendi around must be around 1951, just about 6-7 years before his passing, had created that, and he had them to help him with certain things. There are some writing about this. I'll bring it up. And he says, this International Baha'i Council would have to become a Baha'i court, then it has to become an elected by people, and finally it has to become universal laws of justice. This is what he says. To this will be added further function in the course of evolution of this first embryonic international institution, marking its development into officially recognized Baha'i court, its transformation into duly elected body, its efflorescence into universal house of justice. And this is again in the Baha'i for 1950, 1957. I think in the tablet of Juliet Thompson is there too. So this institution, and it has a president. It was Mason Remy, chosen by Shoghi Effendi as the president. And there were actually 5 hands of the cause of God in there. Ruhi Khanum, his wife, was a liaison. There was Leroy Iwas, Yugo Giagri, and so there were 5 of them. But there were 4 others. But they were both man and women. This International Baha'i Council, there's another one he says again here, I quote, process of unfoldment of the ever-advancing administrative order accelerated by the formation of the International Baha'i Council, designed to assist the erection of the superstructure of the Bab sepulchre, that's what they were supposed to do, cementize uniting the budding world administrative center with the recently established state, and pave the way for the formation of the Baha'i court, essential prelude to the institution of the universal house of justice. He says in his writing that International Baha'i Council is, he says, is the biggest thing that's happened in the history of the faith. You go look at it for yourself again in Wikipedia. He calls it the most remarkable things, he says. The remarkable institution. But their members, as I said, 5 of them were hands of the cause of God. So the institution hands of the cause of God, which 5 members of this International Baha'i Council were also the member of the institutional hands of the cause of God, they basically decided to continue what Shoghi Effendi wanted them to do. Because it is written by the Abdul-Baha, they have to be in the service of Shoghi Effendi. Their main definition of their thing is to protect the faith and also promulgate it. These were the 2 things hands of the cause were made. There are 27 of them. So, Baha'i International Baha'i Council, you could have said that is dissolved at that time. Why? Because 5 members of them were hands of the cause, and they decided that, according to writing of Abdul-Baha, they have to, rule over the faith and run the affairs. Abdul-Baha says they have a lot of power. And they said that they tried to make this International Baha'i Council to become a Baha'i court. They went to Israel, to the newly government of Israel. They talked to them that, we're Baha'is, we were here long time before there was Israel government, and we are religious groups, and we like to have our own court for the Baha'is here. But the government of Israel rejected it, and he said that this is a secular government, we don't have any religious court here, whether Jews or Christian or Muslim or anything. Court is the Israeli court. And they tried twice, and they thought that's impossible to happen. So they said, that they have a task that's kind of impossible to do, but they can ask the Baha'is to go to the 3rd stage and get this appointed system to become an elected system. So in 1961, which is 1950, about 4 years after Shoghi Effendi's passing, they decided to have Baha'is of the world to elect an elected, an appointed not, but an elected International Baha'i Council. And this time, they said to the Baha'is of the world, hands of the cause of God should not be a part of it. They have to be elected from the group of the Baha'is, not hands of the cause of God. That was appointed, this is elected. Because hands of the cause of God was a different institution, and they were part of the guardianship, and they cannot involve into the matter pertains to a general Baha'is that they have to elect. This was going to become eventually universal laws of justice. At 1961, they decided to promulgate the faith. A lot more assemblies and national assemblies increased. Very, huge. It's the greatest Baha'i teaching in the West that happens by them. And in 1963, they asked the Baha'is of the world to elect the member of the Universal Laws of Justice, which they were 9 people. So this question lingers in the mind of a lot of people. Was this a good decision? What we have to know, based on the fact they had the authority to do this. They felt that this document of the 10 years plan that was in front of them, that has to be done, all the Baha'is are asking about who's the next guardian. And by the way, in 1960, which is 1 year before this election happens, Mason Remy said that, I am the next guardian. So, hands of the cause of God, they were, in a shamble. They knew they're not infallible. They knew there has to be an infallible body to rule over the Baha'is. That is why they went on right away 2 years after that to elect the universal laws of justice, basically like a court, to decide whether Mason Remy is right or them. And universal laws of justice, but first they said that in their writing. Again, you can look at it in the right on computer. You go to Wikipedia, you can find all of this. These are authentic writings. Universal laws of justice said that we cannot interfere in the matter pertaining to the guardianship. We cannot appoint any guardian, and we cannot make any laws make this to be possible. As a result, the issue of Mason Remy was resolved. That him as a hand of the cause of God cannot promote himself to become guardian. A guardian equal to the Shoghi Effendi. That is not possible. I gave you 9 reasons who is such a divine guardian. It does not include a person on his own to decide this. If you're appointed to be a hands of the cause of God, if you go back and say that I am now a guardian, well then you're saying that Shoghi Effendi was wrong about me. But he had some point though. I'll tell you what he has. He said that, well, Shoghi Effendi has appointed me as the president of the International Baha'i Council. And this International Baha'i Council, it is becoming an elected body, and then it's becoming universal laws of justice, which means I, as the president, have to be there too. If I'm the president of International Baha'i Council, I should be the International Universal Laws of Justice too, because this is evolving from that. He thought he can transfer his leadership from one institution to others. But as hands of the cause of God, because it's appointed by Shoghi Effendi, it cannot be elected now by people. For example, if Baha'u'llah appoint Abdul-Baha as his successor, the Baha'is, they can't decide in the assembly Abdul-Baha to become a member of the assembly. That's not possible. He already has a job, already has an appointment. He can't do that. If at the time of Baha'u'llah there is a universal laws of justice made, let's say, you can't vote for Baha'u'llah to be the member of universal laws of justice. This is why in the Baha'i emblem there's 3 levels. There's God, there's cause in the center, and then there's creation, revelation, shall we say. The cause, in which we have Bab, Baha'u'llah, Abdul-Baha, and Shoghi Effendi, they're infallible. They can't be elected by people. So, and hands of the cause of God were appointed by Shoghi Effendi. They were not infallible, but they were given a job, they were appointed by a job which cannot be disputed by others to say that, well, they were not infallible. Whether they were or they were not, Shoghi Effendi, Abdul-Baha says, 9 people have to be elected among these 27, and they have the power to excommunicate anybody who is going to be wanting separation, wanting to break away, and he wants to be injurious to the cause of God. This authority was given, and they said to Mason Remy that you can't be. But we are people. We have a mind of our own. We want to see what really, was this a good decision or not? Well, if I was there myself as the elder of God, I cannot tell you honestly what would I do. Because it's hard to say now. In the future you can say. There's only one way you can find out if this was a good decision or not, is that you have to look at the future and you have to look at the consequence and the result. The result was not very glorious. They created the universal laws of justice to stop the breaking of the faith into many segmentations. This was done. But this also created a kind of a dogma a prison where Baha'is were imprisoned in it. They couldn't do it. They're in front of a body that's dogmatic. He has made few mistakes. I'll bring it up for you. And has created more questions than answers. People are saying, why women are not elected universal laws of justice? Well, the prominent Baha'is in Toronto are telling me that I cannot fathom logically in my head, how can 9 members get elected and become infallible? See? But if it was that elected International Baha'i Council, if the hands of the cause of God, they stopped at that point, they would say that a 10 years plan by the Shoghi Effendi is given to us. In there it says that the International Baha'i Council has to become a Baha'i court, and this is not happening. They said such has to happen in 2 other 3 countries in Middle East. That would be impossible to do it. There are a few items in the 27 objective of the 10-year plan of Shoghi Effendi that was impossible to fulfill. It looks like a riddle. Basically, what he says is that you cannot achieve this. So 10 years plan would have to be ended without being completed. But all of that are words that we can say. The reality is this. The 27 hands of the cause of God were chosen by Shoghi Effendi, and this was their decision. The decision that proved to solve one problem, which is prevention of the fate of God, of the cause of God in segmentations, but it's also dogmatism. For a person like me, I'm really just an ordinary guy. Millions of me will be coming in future. If universal laws of justice cannot tolerate a person like me with my opinions, which are all based on the faith, how else this faith can grow to anything? This is exactly what the wording of Shoghi Effendi. It should not become a means to its own end. It's basically universal laws of justice is killing the faith of God. That's it. The cause of God is dying because of the universal laws of justice right now. Let me see what else I have put here. So I told you why the Mason Remy was not accepted, because his hands of the cause of God, he cannot promote himself to another degree, and 26 of the hands of the cause, they disagreed with him, and therefore he's out. That it can't be anybody, any people that they talk about. But there are, as I said, a lot of questions that create problem, and I have written a few of them. The questions that is there right now and gradually start to surfacing after the formation of Universal Laws of Justice in 1963 is, for example, this. There's a few of them. Universal Laws of Justice cannot interpret the writing. This is what they say themselves. This is a prerogative, they say, that's only for the guardian of the cause of God. They can't. Without it, how do you enact law? Shoghi Effendi, he says that the future generations have to continue his job on the world order of Baha'u'llah. He says the relationship of the universal laws of guardianship and universal laws of justice is not fully explained, their relationship to Abdul Baha and to Baha'u'llah, future. Universal laws of justice has no jurisdiction, cannot interfere in the matter of guardianship. It says that, Shoghi Effendi says, the guardianship, the institution of guardianship, would have to define the limit and the limitations of the universal laws of justice. Without it, it's just, this is a necessary guidance, it says. It's lacking right now. If these decisions of universal laws of justice are not according to the writing of the faith, as Shoghi Effendi says, this is his job to insist upon reconsideration of it, who's going to do that? Shoghi Effendi clearly talks about a building. It's called Darul Velayah. Dar means house. Velayah means house of, means guardianship. The house of guardianship. The third building in the universal laws, in the Holy Land. The first one is Darul Tashri, which means the house of legislation, universal laws of justice. Second one was Darul Asar, which means the house of the writings and the house of all the writings of the Bab and Baha'u'llah and everything in there. Basically archive. And the third one, it says, is called Darul Velayah, which is the house of interpretations. What happens to that? What about the future guardians that Shoghi Effendi talks about? These are all universal laws of justice says. It is envisaged in the writing of Shoghi Effendi. And they ask Abdul Baha, why the women are not there? He says, like a sun in the middle of the sky, in the middle of the heaven, at the noontide. At the noontide, this matter will become that clear to everyone, why the women are not there. How could the universal laws of justice continues on its own? Okay? Because Abdul Baha says, if there is no guardian after the Shoghi Effendi, there will be differences. Who says that? And it's those writings, you know. So they were telling me that when all these things went to the universal laws of justice and they came and I talked to them, they brought writings such as this, send it to me. Two writings. This is in the Light of Guidance, page 313 and 313. One, I quote, there are no other interpreters whatsoever. No individual may interpret. This is strictly forbidden. Light of Guidance. Second one. My purpose is this. There are the expirations. That ere the expirations of 1,000 years, no one has the right to utter a single word, even to claim the station of guardianship. This is what it says. This is what happens when we study the faith in one aspect. This is the story of Rumi, you know. 7 blind men to go that define what they can see. That was supposed to be an elephant. One went and said it looks like a snake. The other one says it looks like a pillar. The other one says it's like a hill. The other one says like a big sword. The other one says like a fan. Because you're reading in context. You have to read it, the faith in the as a whole, in the whole context of the faith. Yes, there are no interpreters, meaning ordinary people cannot interpret. Yes. But that doesn't mean that there is no institution to interpret. Because that's what Abdul Baha Shoghi Effendi says, the house of guardianship. I'll bring this writing for you. And it says the station of the guardianship. Yes. Elders are not guardians. Elders are elders. They have the responsibility of interpretations. Guardianship includes all those 9 things that I told you. They are the chief of entire Baha'i faith. They are infallible. Of course there is no such a thing. But Shoghi Effendi says, I bring it to you again. To the lady that asked, what is this meaning of future guardian? He says to him, and I paraphrase, if you believe in Baha'u'llah as a person by God to talk to us about what God wants, the projection of this is very simple to say that when Baha'u'llah is gone, he will have people here to continue his affairs as he wants in the earth. And within the bracket says, i.e. the guardians. So this was a little bit anyways. I talked to you so far about the divine guardianship of Shoghi Effendi. He was the first and the last. But universal laws of justice has not been a solution to all the problem. It's a solution that has created more questions. So, the authority of the hands of the cause of God has enacted this house based on what they thought is right. But that cannot be the end. What happened was right, but it's not all of the right things. The story, the saga, continues. I am not disputing to have the existence of the universal laws of justice at the moment right now. Can exist. But this doesn't mean that all of the faith is that. I am the elder of Baha'u'llah. And I've proven to you, no one before me has been able to find anything wrong with universal laws of justice. You have to show it to me. If you think they are the institution that you have to follow, I am telling you the mistakes they have made. In relationship to my knowledge, they're not. They are inferior. Their authority, I'm not disputing. I'm not the authoritative. I'm the tutor of a prince. I'm not the king in future. But the prince is a baby, is a child. Still, have to be coached. Anyways, those who believe in universal laws of justice based on the Baha'i faith, they have to also accept. In the Baha'i faith, there are 3 types of guardianship. The first one I told you, I'm going to discuss next time, hopefully tomorrow, or a couple of days after, if I'm healthy, that there is such a thing as the special guardianship in the writing. And there is such a thing as a general guardianship. And if this is up to the Baha'is, at the moment right now, at age 65, I'm 64 in writing, actually I'm 66. My last thought is that I need help now. I'm getting older and I don't know how long I'm going to continue to be. I found this to be a part of my mission to ask for help. I do need help from some youngsters that if they like to come, I want them to come here to be with me, and I'm going to teach them everything about the faith of God. I am going literally to take them to Baha'u'llah. They will have visions and he will tell them what to do. So there are things in the computer, there are writings, there's a bunch of things I want to do. I cannot continue, I cannot complete it. So if there are volunteers that they like to do that, just email me at my email at guardianship@rogers.com. GUARDIANSHIP @rogers.com. And but it's up to you. I have to say though that I need help. I should not continue by myself right now. There are other things. There's a lot of computer work I need. I need to have turn a part of this house into a studio, to have a TV, like a TV program on the computer, and have something like a fireside, like a deepening, where we discuss all these matters in a very open program, so that we can help the Baha'i community to go forward. God be with you.